Hello, Garland, Nixon here, and it appears that some DC insiders are starting to question the neocon madness of the Biden administration. And I'm going to give you an update on Newsweek and YouTube's war on Garland. Let's talk. Hello, Garland, Nixon here, and let's get fired up and ready to roll. Let's start with this. I'm going to give you an update on the Newsweek thing, and then we'll get into the latest article, an interesting article from William Perry, former Clinton administration. I think he might have been defense minister, as they say in a lot of countries. All right, for starters, what happened with Newsweek, as some of you may know, maybe I'll show you the article, and we will. Darn it, I should have had that up here. But the bottom line is this. So Newsweek, some stinking bots came after me. Let me try to find it. Some bots came after old Garland today, and there was a YouTube, there was a Newsweek article written, and my humble little name was in the article, right? And so for those of you who haven't seen the article, I'll share it with you. I'm not going to be long. I'm not one of those people that like to talk about myself. And now another YouTube article about Garland, whatever, who gives a shit about me? But I'm going to just update you. So what happens is I share this friggin' meme on YouTube, and it was like, I'll show you the meme. You seen one bunch of oh, it's gone. Isn't that interesting? It's gone. This page doesn't exist anymore. That's weird. That's weird. That's even weirder. Well, maybe it's further. Wow, it's gone. Let me try to find. Oh, here we go. Yeah, bingo. There you go. Okay, so let me show you this friggin' meme. Okay, as you can see, and that was a Ukrainian flag or something like that. You notice all the Sieg Heil kind of things. I shared it. And so they freaked out, and they wrote an article about it. And the article was like, and the article mentioned me, oddly enough, right? And it goes on to say, it had me on my name on there, right? And it's like, where are we? Let me show you this for those who haven't seen this. There we go. Garland Nixon. And here's how I describe me: a left-leaning DC-based talk show host and media personality, right? Was among those posting the image archived here with the caption away. Okay, so they do that. So what happened was, when I shared that meme, all of the Ukraine bots all came out and lost their minds. Oh my God, that's not real. It's not, that's photoshopped or whatever. And my position was, okay, maybe it is. What the hell? You get 1,000 memes, a day. But if this is a photoshopped image of a bunch of people in Ukraine ostensibly doing the Sieg Heil Hitler, and it's a bad image, it's a false image of people in Ukraine doing the Sieg Heil salute, then it's the only one, because I can find 100 of them a day. Apparently, those are the only people in Ukraine who don't do the Sieg Heil salute. So anyway, so that was my position. Like, you guys are getting all flipped out. And it made sense to me, because I'm like, you know what? Of all the pictures of Nazis in Ukraine, you finally found one out of the hundreds of thousands. You finally found one that you can say it's photoshopped image. So you got to really, I can't hate on them. I mean, you got to celebrate that. When you find somebody in Ukraine that ain't a Nazi, you got to kind of show off. Hey, let's see. Oh, there's Adolf over there. There's the Azov battalion over there. There's C-14 over there. There's all of these people running around with Nazis. Oh, there's a guy right there who's not a Nazi. So when you find somebody in Ukraine that's not a Nazi, other than, of course, Eastern Ukraine, where the Russian speakers are, once you get to Western Ukraine, if you can find somebody who ain't a Nazi, best of luck with that. So I'm like, hey, I ain't hating on you guys. I'll give you credit. You finally found somebody in Western Ukraine that's not a Nazi. I got to kind of give you your props. But here's what's interesting about it. So I did a video this morning where I gave them hell, and I also got upset. I'm like, why are you going to call me a left-leaning DC-based talk show host and media personality? That's kind of boring. I was hoping you were going to call me a Russian bot, a Putin stooge, all the stuff that everybody else gets. They call Jimmy Dore Russian bots and Putin stooges. They call everybody else that, and what do I get? A left-leaning DC-based talk show host and media personality. How droll, how very droll. And I thought, I know what those bastards are doing. It's all a setup. So now all my friends are going to be like, well, this is weird, Garland. Everybody else gets called a Russian bot, but they never come after you. I knew it. You're the CIA plan. I'm like, that's the plan. They're out to get me, right? But whatever the case, all jokes aside, but at least I'm in Newsweek. Hey, did you know this? Newsweek sold for $1. The guy that bought Newsweek paid it for $1. And if you ask me, he overpaid. But he paid $1. It was so indebted and it was such a piece of trash. Some guy paid $1 for it and took on all of their debts. And now Newsweek, I mean, think about it. This is new. How low has Newsweek come? Right? Let's look at this and let's think about how low Newsweek has come. Right? Let's look at this. It's like, does viral photo show Nazi wedding in Ukraine? They literally had to write an article about one schmuck that shared a meme on Twitter. Billions, literally billions of people on Twitter. You know what that reminds me of? It's like a small town newspaper that does a article about a cat stuck in a tree. Yes, the local Smithtown volunteer fire department responded to 104 Elm Street, which happens to be the only street in our town, but to a cat stuck in a tree. And then they actually interview people and they write an article about a cat stuck in a tree because it's such a absurd and tiny newspaper that that's all they got in that town is a cat stuck in a tree. That's what Newsweek has become. They're literally writing articles about a person who shared a meme. Listen, a person who shared a meme on Twitter. How much of a piece of crap does Newsweek have to be? Other people are writing about wars. Hey, the Hubble space, this space, look at that. The Webb space, look at this. Deep space. What does this all mean? Are these aliens? Things of that nature, right? Oh, there's a terrorist attack in Mumbai. You name it. The other places are writing these huge stories, and Newsweek is yeah, let's write a story. I think some guy shared a meme. Can you see in the newsroom? There's going to your editor. What do you have? And a guy that shared a meme on Twitter. We're Newsweek. We're a pile of shit. Go ahead, run with it. What else do we have? We're Newsweek. Maybe finally, at least the people who clicked on this guy will come here. Because let's face it, we ain't getting anybody else. We're Newsweek. Good job, Newsweek. Keep up the good work. I then went on, believe it or not. My buddy calls me and he says, hey, Garland, you know that video that you did this morning where you talked about Newsweek going after you? Yeah, it won't play. And then other people started calling me and texting me. And I went on YouTube and it wouldn't play. It was locked out. The video was still there, but when you clicked on it, it wouldn't play. And I'm like, they locked this damn video, right? Isn't this something? And I knew it was they couldn't really come up with a reason to censor it because let's face it, what are they going to call it? Hate speech? I just said, why won't you call me a Russian bot? And this is a joke, right? So they just locked it. So it wouldn't play, right? So I went on Twitter and I tweeted the link to the Rockfin video. And I said, this video was censored by YouTube. Go watch it on Rockfin. See, it's on a real free speech platform. And you can see why Twitter censored it, right? I did that. Within 10 minutes, YouTube censored it. Within 10 minutes, YouTube had unlocked it. Isn't it interesting? So they're watching, they're waiting, they're keeping track. They know when you're sleeping. They know when you're awake. They know when you've been a Russian bot. But apparently they will call everybody a Russian bot but me. Maybe because of the Zen thing. Maybe they know I don't give a shit. In fact, maybe they know that what I'm going to do is if they call me a Russian bot, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use it for fuel. So they don't want to, they won't work. It won't work. All right, let's get that back to the big stuff. Let's get to the important stuff. Enough about me. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Forget Garland Nixon. He's just another Russian bot, but he's got something to say. And let's see what it is. All right. This is important, I think. Why? Because what we can learn from it. Oh, William Perry, former defense secretary under the Clintons. And he writes, he looks back at our relationship with Russia and charter, with Russia and charts of a way forward with peace. When you look at this, there's the normal bullshit. And I know First of all, knowing the insiders of DC like I do, I know there's certain things he had to say in here in order to even get this in anything, to get anybody to read it, to not get destroyed. He had to write certain things. But he goes on and he says, the hostility between the U.S. and Russia was dark days through the Cold War, how we found ourselves back here. And believe it or not, you're going to find it interesting. So he talks about the brutal invasion of Korea, of Ukraine. It's worth trying to understand how we found ourselves so far from these early days. Listen to this. Not just to manage the current situation, but also in the hopes that we can restore the relationship to something beyond open antagonism. There are people, insiders in DC. When somebody like this guy writes this, it's not just him. That ain't the way DC works. There is an element in DC that's saying, hey, this is kind of bullshit. We need to pull back. This is not working, right? This is not good. So restore the relationship between something beyond open antagonism. Now, there's no way to get back to Russia. Russia's done with the West. They're going in another direction. Russia, the West, forget the West. The Biden administration has declared all-out war on Russia, and Russia knows it. Russia knows it. And so you declare all-out war from them, you ain't gonna pull back from that. But at any rate, let's go. Many have pointed to the expansion of NATO as a critical provocation. Listen to this. At the time, I exposed that expansion, right, in part for fear of the effect on Russian-U.S. relations. What is he saying there? Let's take those words apart. Some have pointed to the expansion of NATO as a critical provocation. You're not allowed to say that. What you're supposed to say is, what the reason is Putin's just a madman. He's a madman, and that's why he's doing it, because he wants to start the Soviet Union up, and he's a madman, and we're the nice guys. He's good. We're evil. That's the only answer we need. He's moving towards critical thinking. He's moving towards realism, pragmatism. Guess what? So there is a realist and a pragmatic element in Washington, D.C., albeit still imperialist bastards, but they ain't crazy imperialist bastards. They're just imperialist bastards. Okay, so he literally is saying, he's bringing up the possibility that the expansion of NATO is at the root of these problems. Do you think? And he goes on to say, he makes it okay to oppose that. Hey, I opposed it. He's saying, why is it important that that's said? Because the people who are looking at this situation now know that they're going to be forced to negotiate with Russia. And they also know that Russia's going to say, get the fuck off my border. They already know that Russia's going to say, I want you to move back to where you were before 96, 91, whatever year it was. I want you back off my border. You're threatening me. And he opens the door for that negotiation by saying, hey, I was against it in the first place. Maybe it was a critical provocation, and I thought it would have a bad effect on it. So he's opening the door to have a discussion to say, perhaps we may need to negotiate and back up a little bit. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is an important sentence. But the larger issue was not just NATO expansion, listen to this, but what it represented. And here's the powerful part. And I'll tell you why. Because what happened, how this happened, in December, the Russians sent a letter to NATO and the Washington, D.C., in particular to Washington, and said, we have some security concerns. We need to sit down and talk about them. We have some demands, and we need to talk about them. If you remember, Jens Stoltenberg said, Russia does not have a veto. Russia does not have a say in this. Basically, fuck you. And Washington, the Biden administration said these aren't even starting points. They completely dismissed them. And at the time, the Russians said, we knew you were going to do it, and we're going to commence to whooping ass. So at any rate, so he says, listen to this. What it represented, a general failure by Western governments, listen to this, to respect the vital importance of this nuclear power to the world order. They're learning that economically now, aren't they? They're learning that militarily, aren't they? They're learning that Russia is willing to fight. That's what they're learning. There's a lot of people that'll talk stuff, will talk trash, but not everybody will fight. There's a lot of people that'll talk all kind of trash, but when you get ready to put the dukes up, they're going to walk away. What they've learned is if Russia feels pushed into a corner, they're willing to fight. They will fight. They are not afraid to fight. They'll try to avoid it, but if they got to fight, they'll fight. So he's saying the importance of this nuclear power. And let me add this. They're also learning they got a lot of commodities that are important to the global market. And now the EU and the US is taking an ass whipping economically for going after them. The vital importance of this nuclear power to the world order. Let's go on. Before NATO expansion, our two nations were on track towards developing a relationship that could have resulted in a true global partnership. Before NATO expansion, once again, this man is saying the problem is NATO expansion. He's opening the door for a discussion of backing off of Russia's border. He's sending the message there are people in Washington, D.C. who are ready to say, we're okay with backing off of NATO's border, Russia's border. We're going to have to do that or this thing's going to go bad, right? We need to have that talk. We need to have this discussion. And he goes on to say, he talks about how he had a cooperative relationship and a cordial relationship with the Russian defense minister, Pavel Grachev. And he talks about he came to NATO meetings. We recognize that communication was critical between our two nations, right? And he goes on to say we were able to collaborate on reducing much of the massive nuclear stockpile. The two world's largest nuclear powers review nuclear weapons stewardess as a joint responsibility. So what's the other thing he says? As part of this responsibility, we dismantled 9,000 nuclear weapons in both countries. Here's what he's revealing. The people who have this concern are concerned about nuclear war. They're concerned about a nuclear confrontation. That's what I'm reading. That's what I'm gleaning. You may get something different, but that's what I'm gleaning from this. Unfortunately, our economic aid was only extended so far in the early 90s as they were blah, blah. And so he goes on to that, right? That how the U.S. just turned their back when he goes on to say basically Russia had some economic problems in the 90s and the U.S. turned its back. Well, that's not exactly the case. The U.S. literally caused the economic problem for Russia in the 1990s. But he goes on to say, and he says, basically, he says they talked about NATO expansion. Russia expressed its objections to the proposed changes on its border, but once again, its views were ignored. Part of what he's starting to put forward is the United States empire now, one way or the other, is going to be forced to take Russia's security concerns into account. The days when they could say to Russia, shut up and do what we want, are gone. Not that they ever really existed, maybe for a while in the 90s and early 2000s, maybe not. But now, forget it. He's literally saying you're going to have to take Russia's security concerns into account. Okay, so listen to this. The combination of the West failing to act during Russia's financial crisis and ignoring their strongly held views on NATO expansion, again, he's legitimizing it. He's saying their views are legitimate, reinforced the prevailing Russian belief that we didn't take them seriously. Well, it was worse than that. It's not that, and Russia knows it. Russia knows that it's none of that, that really there's a malicious attitude towards Russia and that the U.S. empire and the neocons want to destroy Russia and take it apart. So he's putting fluff in it, but he can't come out and say that. So I understand. If you understand DC, you have to read between the lines because there's things you can't come out and say. Here's what he says. There's no force greater than possessing a nuclear arsenal capable of bringing about the end of humanity. For those who had asked, what could this defeated nation do to us? The newly installed President Vladimir Putin, would soon have an answer. So again, what does he bring up? Nuclear issues. There are concerns with people that there could be a nuclear confrontation. And if so, that's all that's it. And they go on. We are now facing a hostile, aggressive Russia conducting a hazardous military attack on Ukraine and threatening to use nuclear weapons if another nation interferes. They haven't said if you interfere, but they've said if you attack us, we'll defend ourselves. And let me add this. It is clear you can go online. Russia has published its policies on when they would use nuclear weapons. You don't have to guess for that one. And then he goes on to say, even though his armed forces are no match for those of the U.S. or NATO, he does not need to fear them. Well, most military, unbiased and independent military experts say now that in the area of Europe, and in particularly along the eastern border, Russia is the preeminent power. the preeminent power. Remember, Russia's military, which is about to go up to 2 million, I think. Russia's military is designed. People are like, well, they don't have, they only have one aircraft carrier, and that one doesn't work, right? Because that ain't what their military is designed for. They've got a large and very powerful and very well-equipped military that is designed specifically to protect their eastern border within 1,000 kilometers, 500 to 1,000 kilometers. You get within 500 to 1,000 kilometers of Russia's border, and you got a problem. I don't care if it's the U.S. or whoever. That's what they're designed. Their military is the size of the U.S. military, but close to it. Maybe in some areas we're bigger. However, we've got military in China, we've got military in South America, we've got military in the Arctic, we've got military in all over Africa, Middle East. Theirs is focused and concentrated on their border. That massive, powerful military is sitting on that border. You pull up to Russia's border, you're going to have a problem, because that is a powerful, powerful military on their border. Powerful. And very well equipped with weapons that such as hypersonic missiles, that we have no defense for. So yeah, sure, they're no match for us. So yeah, well, on their border, NATO is currently no match whatsoever. The U.S. It would take us a year, according to experts that I've heard, a year to build up the forces to be able to confront Russia on their border, and even those might lose it. Do you think they'd sit around and wait a year for us to build them up? They'd smash them to pieces first. Okay, with standoff attacking missiles. Even though his armed forces are no match for the U.S. or blah, blah, he does not defeat them, need to fear them. They will be deterred from interfering by the threat that he will go nuclear, and he has made that threat clear. Again, he's saying we have a concern about a nuclear confrontation, and it's a valid concern. But listen to this. Today, we're confronting with a Russia that is least as hostile as the Soviet Union. This dangerous problem does not have a simple solution. But listen to this. Still, the first step in finding a solution, and this is important, is acknowledging the problem and recognizing that our actions have contributed to that hostility. That's realism there. It's obvious that NATO expansion has contributed. So what he's saying in this article is Russia has valid concerns that we better damn well respect on their border, and we have some responsibility for creating the problem that's there right now. That's unthinkable to say, but he's saying it, isn't he? And he ain't by himself if he's saying it. There are people in Washington, D.C. who are starting to look at the Biden administration saying, look, man, these neocons are out of their freaking minds, and they're dangerous, and we need to start pushing back on them. This is a pushback. It also reminds us that even during times of tension and hostility, it remains crucial to maintain constructive lines of communication with Russia and other nuclear adversaries. Listen to this: to decrease the chances of misunderstanding that could trigger a nuclear conflict. There are people in DC that are looking at the neocons and saying these bastards are set to kill us all. We got to pull back. We got to back off. We got to start going into realism. So what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. is a push for realism. Interesting to see how that works with these knuckleheads in the Biden administration. Listen to this. There is no organic reason why Russia should be our enemy. Now they say Putin is the enemy, not Russia. Well, that doesn't even make sense. Hey, we don't hate your country. We hate your leader. Well, how's that going to work? But he has to say that. You got to understand, in Washington, D.C., he can't take two steps unless he says, Putin, 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 Putin. So Putin is the enemy. We must and think about what he says. We must work to rebuild connections with Russia, treat the Russian people with respect, rebuild our relationships in the hopes that we once again can return to the path of friendship. Well, but look, he says what the obligatory pro forma, hey, we've got to Putin's evil, Putin's evil, Putin's evil. But he says we got to build a relationship with Russia, which, let's face it, let's be logical. Who's in charge of Russia? Who do you have to meet with? Who do you have to strike that deal with? He even admits in there. I mean, Putin's got like an 80% approval rating. So, but listen to that ends. In the hopes that we can once again return to the path of friendship. I believe there are a couple of things here. Number one, they're looking at it, and there are people that know the truth, and that is that all this bullcrap about Putin, that Russia's losing to Ukraine, is a lie. They know that that's true. They also know that that very, very shortly, Europe is going straight to hell, and it's going to be a dystopian hellscape. And guess what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen, don't you? 70,000 people were in 70,000 people in Prague in Czechoslovakia. Well, they ever? I mean, I thought it was like maybe Paris or something, but not Prague. 70,000 people in the streets in Prague, and they made a demand. And their demand was the government's got to resign by the 25th of September or else. And they've already said we're organizing, we're talking to trade unions or whatever, we're going to do a national strike. So guess what? As of September 25th, it's over for the government of Czechoslovakia. And at Paris, there was a strike, and they were saying no more NATO, get out of NATO. What they see is NATO's collapsing. And as it's been said many times in Russia, old General Winter has never lost a battle for Russia. The General Winter comes around every year, and it's never lost a battle for Russia. They'll fight you, but they're waiting around for General Winter to counterattack. And let me tell you something, General Winter and his forces are about to counterattack on the EU. And there ain't no way you can fight that. Ask the Nazis how that worked out. Nobody. You fight Russia in the winter. And the Russian, what's interesting is this, and it's a metaphoric fight Russia in the winter, because it is a huge, major economic war. But General Winter is going to come around, and Russia just flipped the switch on heating, on gas for the EU. Now, keep in mind, Nord Stream 1, they just shut down. There are other pipelines. There's like the Brothers Pipeline, the Turk Stream, there's the Yamal, there's another number of pipelines. So think about this. What does that mean that there's several other pipelines from Russia going into Europe? That means that they got more they could cut off, doesn't it? That it ain't over. That means that they could say, oh, well, it's funny. This other pipeline running through Ukraine due to the war, it must have been damaged. Maybe a piece of artillery hit it. I don't know. That one shut down too. So they ain't done with Europe. They ain't done. They can keep cutting off pipelines for Europe anytime they want to. They got Europe by the short and curlies. And I think there are people here looking at that saying, they know what you and I know. This is it for NATO. All this bull crap about an information war. I'm sorry, you can't heat your house with the Twitter. You got a bunch of, like right now, I got all of these Ukraine bots attacking me on Twitter. I could care less, I don't give a shit. But here's the bottom line: you can't heat your house with Ukraine bots. You can't run your factories and industry with Ukraine bots. You can't do any of that. It's over for Europe. It is OVER, game, set, and match. And that's what the people who are realists in DC know. They know two things. Number one, Russia's going to stand aside and let General Winter sweep its icy winds and knock the hell out of it. And then the people there will be lucky if there's much left of a Europe to save, because the people in Europe are going to tear that place limb from limb. They'll literally freeze to death by the thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. What are you going to do in Northern Europe if you run completely out of gas? If you have whole cities, whole swaths of countries that have no electricity, no heat, no water, no nothing? How are they going to cook their food? How are they going to move food around? How are people, they're not going to go to work. How are they going to have money to buy food? You are talking one of the greatest economic and human disasters. You think Yemen looks bad? The Yemenis will be laughing at them. What they have done to Yemen will come home to NATO. So the realists are knowing that. And what they know is when that happens, Russia's just going to be sitting there with their arms folded. And they're going to have to go to Russia. And do you think, let me put it to you like this. You got to make a deal with me and we're even-handed. Now you got to make a deal with me and I got all the cards. What's that deal going to look like? It's going to look different, isn't it? I got a handful of aces and you need to deal with me. I don't need to deal with you. You need to deal with me. It ain't going to be a pretty deal. You're going to go home. You're going to be in a barrel with suspenders over it. When I get finished with you, you're cleaned out. So what they know, let's just say 2 months from now, let's just say November gets, and it's cold, December, November, and it's cold as hell in Poland and Latvia and all those Eastern Russia hating places. And now in Finland, oh yeah, the Queen of Finland, she's dancing around, showing whatever, and she's all pretty and stuff like that. Yeah. How you think that's going to look when the people in Finland are cold? The people in Norway are frozen, in Sweden and Switzerland and all of those people in Germany, they got nothing. They got nothing. They have no food. Their jobs are gone. What do you think they're going to do? And Annalena Baerbock going around saying, we don't care what the voters think. We're going to stick with the sanctions. Those people are going to get extremely violent. They are up against a force that they don't understand. Let me explain something to you. When human beings are, when their life is on the line and their children's lives are on the line, you've heard of the Donner Pass. There's been many instances where human beings were desperate and there was cannibalism and they literally ate each other rather than die. Human beings will do that kind of stuff. Bugs, certainly, the WEF would have us all eating bugs, but you get my point. You name it. So when people in Europe get to the point where they see their livelihood gone, they have no future. You see, as what's his name, Baldwin said, the worst thing a society can create is a man who's got nothing left to lose. They're going to create a continent of people who have nothing left to lose. They will take their asses out. And I mean, I'm opposed to violence. I do not ever want to see anything like this happen. But I will give you a prediction. They will take those people out and bad things will happen to them. They'll string people up. They ask Nikolai Ceausescu what happened to him. Some of these leaders of these countries, when people get desperate and hungry, and that was nothing, they'll tear them limb from limb, literally tear their arms and legs off. They will pull those people to pieces. None of them will survive. It's not going to be a matter of the leaders of this countries fleeing to the U.S. like most puppet leaders leave, with like suitcases full of cash, and they're on the tarmac taking off and money's falling out of the suitcase. You know how puppet leaders do with the U.S. That's how they normally do. They ain't going nowhere. They ain't going nowhere. The people of Europe will show up at the Capitol. They say, we got no food. We got no gas. We need you to go negotiate with the Russians now and get the gas turned on. Well, I'm sorry, we can't do that. That's okay. Your services are no longer needed. We're going to find somebody that does. Well, we're not going to step down. Oh, no, but we're not talking about stepping down. You ain't stepping down. You're not going to survive to step down. They will tear down the doors and they will go through those doors and windows and they will go in the capitals and they will grab those people and bad things will happen. And based on what I'm saying, that I'm not lying. Good and damn well. It's one thing if the prices are high and people are angry and they got to pay too much, but they can still go get a beer or something every now and then and go to the pub and drown their sorrows. That ain't what we're talking about. We're talking about the collapse of civilization. We're talking about the literal collapse of civilization right under these people's feet. Hospitals saying we're going to have warming rooms in the hospitals to keep our patients because we don't have enough fuel to keep the entire hospital warm. Hospitals running out of electricity, people dying. Homes, well, we got warming stations where everybody can come to and warm because their homes are people in their cars dying of carbon monoxide inhalation because they're in there running the heat because they can't afford to heat their homes or heat one room. And then what's going to happen when pipes start to burst? We are talking about civilizational collapse. When it gets to that point, the violence will be irresistible. People will come together and they'll say, we got to go to the Capitol and something's got to happen. You will see 1 million people in front of the Capitol and they ain't going to be there to talk and they're not going to be there to ask questions because it will start with, some chants or something like that. And you know how that works. People are furious. It's a tinder. Right now, Europe is a tinderbox and all you need is a match. And you know what's going to happen? They will surround the Capitol, whatever. They'll be everywhere. And somebody will throw a rock. Somebody will throw a brick through a window. Somebody will break down a door. It only takes one thing like that to happen, particularly when people are saying, I have little children at home. We got no heat. I don't have any food to go home and bring them. My factory that I work for is closed. I don't have any way of paying my rent, my mortgage, nothing. I got no food. I got no heat. I got no job. I got nothing left to lose. So I guess I'm going to go off of this earth and freeze to death. And you know what they're going to say? I'm not leaving alone. I'm going to take some people with me. And I would advise, and this may sound like I'm over the top. I don't think it is. And I guarantee you the people watching this video are saying the same thing. This ain't over the top. This is what history tells us. If you don't understand this, you don't understand. See, here's the thing. These people live in a dream world. They live in this narrative-driven bullshit world where they say this and they believe it, right? That ain't the way it works in reality. That ain't the way it works on the street. That ain't the way it works when you look on somebody's face and you see they're not reasonable anymore. And I guess it's my years in law enforcement. I've seen that. I've seen the look on somebody's face. There's people you can talk to, sir, we have a warrant for you for your arrest for so and so, so and so. And the person like, okay, well, you got me, whatever. But there's times. And you find out this person has a history of violence, has a history of all kinds of stuff, right? And you're like, oh, this might not be good. And you got to serve a warrant on this person. And you see the look in their face. And you see that, and you know, there ain't no talking to them. They ain't going quietly. You're going to have a problem. And you better be ready to act. And you better be ready to fight, because that's what they're getting ready to do. Right? I've seen that look. I know it when I see it. What happens when you got 100,000, 250, 500,000 in the street, and they got that look? They got that clenched jaw look, that anger that says, I'm already dead as far as I'm concerned. When am I going to go home and tell my wife and kids? I've gone to the street. We got no food. We got no heat. Now told my wife I'm gone to the street. I can't even go back and face them with an empty hand and say, honey, I got no food for the kids. I got nothing. They, as far as they're concerned, what are they going to go back and tell their family? At that point, it doesn't matter to them anymore. They consider themselves practically dead anywhere. Their society is dead. When you get people on the street with that attitude, you ain't going to have nothing left of your capital city. They will turn cars over. They will light the place on fire. And we'll go to the Capitol. And if there's some people in charge that, God forbid, happens to be in the Capitol, I don't think they get out of that alive. I don't think they realize that. That's a reality. I'm not bullshit now. I am talking human nature. If it gets to that point, some of these people, these idiots who have betrayed their constituents are going to look around them and they're going to say, I'm living in hell. Who did this to me? And they're going to turn around and look at him. It was you, wasn't it? It was you. You destroyed everything, didn't you? All it takes is for one person to throw a brick through a window. And there ain't enough soldiers. And let me add this. You might have heard me say this before. And what happens if Liz Truss or Macron or whoever the hell, which one of these neoliberal bastards, looks at the military and the police and says, the people are charging, shoot, fire. But the people in the military, they don't have electricity or heat. They got their kids. Nobody's taking to their kids. And the people that they just ask them to fire on are their mothers and brothers and cousins. And the people in the military, they say, fire! Stop them now. They're charging. And the people in the military say, I'm not shooting my own people. And they either throw their guns around or they turn around. This has happened time and again in history. This has happened time and again in history. And they turn around and they say, no, not this time. What do the leaders do then? They better say their prayers, because at that point, they're getting strung up. There ain't no way around it. They're getting strung up. And I know there are people watching this saying, yeah, Garland's being overly dramatic. I mean, sure, will they, the leaders, or they've got power. They have bunkers to go. They have this, they have that, and they'll get out of this and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. That works. And that's good until it gets to the point that people are starving and freezing to death. When you get to the point that people do not have the basic things that they need to survive, people or animals become very violent. They are backed into a corner. Do not back people into a corner. What the leaders of the U.S. is doing through their puppets in the EU, they are backing the people of Europe into a corner, and those damn people are going to come out fighting, and they're going to look for the people who did that to them. And either those people will fix it or they won't survive, and they'll find somebody to fix it. If they can get out of the country alive, that will be their best bet. When in Prague, they're going to come to him September 25th. Now, the president of Czechoslovakia said, "Oh, this is just being pushed by far left and far right." And guess what they said? "Oh, this is Putin. They're listening to Russian propaganda." That sounds good for Google and Facebook and Twitter. That sounds good. It's just Russian propaganda. I guarantee the neocons at the State Department, the people at MSNBC are cheering. Yeah, that's the right answer. You say it. You tell them it's all Russian propaganda. Sounds good. Sounds good. But these people have said September 25th, your asses better be out of Dodge. Come September 25th, don't let me catch you. Don't let me catch you sitting in that prime minister's chair on September 25th. And they've said, we got plans. They will start with national strikes. And what are they going to do? What's going to happen when the whole country shuts down and strikes? What is the prime minister going to say then? Well, it looks like everybody in our country are a bunch of Russian bots. They're all falling for Putin stuff. Is that what he's going to do? And the people yeah, you tell them, the people, you stupid people in your country are all a bunch of idiots. You tell them, Prime Minister. Hey, Prime Minister, hello, hello. There's nobody on the other end. What happened? Why do I hear somebody going, because they got a rope around their neck. Because that's the way this story ends, unfortunately. And they better wake up, but they won't, because that ain't who they are. They ain't going to wake up, but they might go to sleep for a long and restful and peaceful sleep if they keep this bullshit up. They just do not understand. Well, because see, here's the thing. I mean, you ever see the movie The Matrix? In The Matrix, right? People were living in a computer. Their brain was plugged into a computer program, and they thought they were in real life, but they were in a computer program. What these idiots and neocons have done is created their own version of the Matrix in the real world. They all came together. They all created a narrative like it was a computer program. And they all live and act within the context of the narrative they created, right? As has been said in psychology, neurotics create castles in the sky, psychotics live in them. They did both. They created a false narrative. Within that narrative, Russia is extremely weak, but it's also extremely powerful. It's very weak. It's weak. It can't fight anybody. It can't fight Ukrainian. They're losing. It's losing to the Ukrainian military. It's just every day it's being trashed. They're being taken out. They're being destroyed. But at the same time, they're so powerful that if they're about to attack NATO and overrun it, at the same time, they can't defeat the Ukrainian army. But at the same time, they're about to attack every country in NATO and take them out. Doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't have to, because it wasn't intended to make sense. It's a false narrative. So they create these narratives. And one of them is the people will do what the hell we tell them to do no matter what. That's the other false narrative. Whatever we don't, Annalena Baerbock said it. We ain't going to listen to the voters. The false narrative is the government will not be held accountable to the voters. It is true totalitarian dictatorship. This is fascism. This is what has come to America. This is what has come to Europe. And now we don't have to listen to these people again. Why? Because we have a narrative that we're all living in. A narrative regarding Russia, a narrative regarding gas, a narrative regarding everything. And since we're living in that narrative, we're going to act and we're going to live and act as though it's true. So they're living in there. They created their own matrix and they're living in it. The rest of the people ain't living in the matrix. The rest of the people, they got to eat. They got to eat. Their kids got to eat. They are people who are accustomed to going down to the Starbucks or whatever coffee shop is in the morning and getting some overpriced coffee because they make pretty good money, to driving their Mercedes or whatever they're driving. People in Europe to driving, they were living pretty well. That's gone down, but they are used to living a comparatively in the world, somewhat of a privileged life. On the weekends, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to go down to sit to a sidewalk cafe, have some wine and talk about things. That's the kind of things they're used to doing. They're not used to crawling around for a bug to eat. They're not used to living in dire third world poverty. They're not used to a government that's going to drag them back to the time of the hunter-gatherer economy. That's what they ain't used to. And they got they got a long ways to fall as to where they're going to get there in a short time to fall. Within months, within literal months, these idiots are going to take an entire continent from living at least a reasonable life to living forward. The people who come from like Africa and Middle East are going to say, oh my God, you people are living like animals. I'm going back to the country I came from. You will be living far worse. At least it's warm there. They don't need heat. At least it's warm and there's animals around. I can eat something. Hey, I found an antelope. I'm eating it. You guys ain't got antelopes. There ain't no antelopes running around. Yeah, so you're out of luck. You're not going to be able to live off the land. You're not going to be able to live off anything. And it's cold as hell. You ain't going to be able to live. And you've heard this said in a household, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. If the people in a country can't survive, trust me when I tell you this, the leaders can't survive either. That's where we're going now. That's where we're going. If the people can't survive, the leaders will not survive either. And I'm smiling. I'm not happy about it. I'm very unhappy about it. I have so many friends, people, wonderful people in Europe, and I don't want to see anything bad happen to Europe. So I would suspect, I don't think we're going to make it into the dead of winter, because as it starts getting cold, the pressure on the leaders will be irresistible. And either one of two things are going to happen, because it ain't going to be long before they figure out what are they going to do. What's going to happen in Germany when they close down their factories, when they close down one BASF factory, a chemical factory? 40,000 people work at one factory. What's going to happen when they close that down? What's going to happen when Mercedes closes, BMW closes, Porsche closes, Audi closes, Bosch closes, Siemens closes, on and on and on. On and on. They all close. And they say, well, we're going to move to Vietnam, China, Malaysia. Why? Because we can afford it there. We're moving to India. Why? We can't afford it there. What's going to happen? In Italy, all of that, cars, France, make all the cars that are made, all that closes down. And at the same time, these people are like, oh my God, I'm hungry, I'm cold. And they turn on the TV or they go online and the Russians are like, hey, dude, can you pass me some more of that borscht? Oh man, it's burning up. And somebody turn the heat down. The guys are in Moscow and they're like, hey, turn the heat down, man. You're frying me here. You're frying me. You're burning me up. For God's sake, man, I'm sick of these people. The heat's up. Where's your wife? Oh, she's there taking a hot bubble bath right now. When she gets out, then the kids are going to take their hot bubble bath. And then we're going to boil some eggs and we'll color them, like they're Easter eggs. And then we're just running around. It's kind of like it's tropical in here. We're all running around in our shorts, sweating. Somebody open a window. I'm hot. They're going to go online. That's what they're going to see in Moscow. Eating, munching away, living good, toasty warm, hot bubble bath, and your European ass is frozen white as snow. You think people going to put up with that? You think people going to put up with that bullshit? I don't see that happening. The protests are firing up. The people are angry, and within a month from now, it's going to be a bad situation. Within 2 months, it's going to be an unbearable situation. And all the bullshit that they're talking about is we're going to start with the sanctions. I would be willing to wager that the phone calls are already coming into Biden and they're saying, man, what are we going to do, dude? What are we going to do? This ain't going to hold up. We're not going to be able to hold this storm off. We got cracks in the dike. And you're calling Biden? What you might as well call Kamala Harris. Biden don't even know what the hell he's doing. Was he going to hand the phone to Kamala Harris? Hey, big countries attack small countries, and small countries shouldn't be attacked by big countries, and I don't know anything else. She's got the IQ of a bag of crushed ice. And that's twice the IQ of Joe Biden, because he doesn't even know he is a bag of crushed ice. And Europe is going to wake up and call these people for advice. Really? Hey, what are we going to do? Biden's going to be like, where's my ice cream? And what? Huh? Where's my dog? Bo, no, that was Obama's dog. Obama, yeah, go to old Brad Brock guy. The guy that I know him. That's the guy right there. That's him. I did that. He's totally lost. And what are they going to say? Alrighty then. They're going to hang up. What's going on? Well, there's people outside, and I think I see the shadow of a noose. You ever see that on TV? There's like a movie, there's the shadow of a noose. Yeah, you're going to see, but it ain't going to be a shadow. It's going to be a noose. And they're going to use it. That's all I got to say. They're going to use it. It's going to be a noose, and their goose is going to be cooked. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see. I see we got some people on. Thank you very much. Let's see. We've got some people who have been kind enough to donate tips. Greg D says, Gulf of Tonkin moment after the midterms. The midterms will be interesting. Be interesting. Be interesting to watch the midterms. Thank you very much, by the way, for that tip on Rockfin. On Rockfin, I don't know why the tips aren't showing up on Rockfin. Oh, there we go. You're a true poet, telling truth with art. You should have an MSM national show, but our leaders have zero tolerance for truth. Yeah, you're right about that. And I can see me on the main street. There we go. Somebody saying great new mRNA vaccine. Yeah, but we haven't even gone there yet. They got problems, and they may be. Wait, we're not going there in here, but I'm just saying they got a whole lot of problems. Some we've discussed, and some that I've discussed. But you got to go to my Rockfin channel premium. So yeah, that's yeah. All right, I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. So if I missed you on Rockfin, Greg D, thank you very much. If I missed you on Rockfin and you did make a commitment, oh, thanks a lot for Gerald Smith. Thanks a lot. So I didn't miss anybody. All right, super chats. Super chats. Super chats? Oh my God, there's no super chats. I don't blame everybody. People are poor. They can't afford damn super chats. Who knows? They might have cut my super chats off for all I know. But no super chats tonight. Let me see. No super chats. I don't know why. YouTube take 30% from super chats. I don't know. They ain't taking 30% from super chats now. They might have. You know what? I wonder after that whole debacle today if they demonetized me. That's possible. They might have I haven't seen anything. They usually something pops up that says you're demonetized. So I don't know, but maybe I'm demonetized. Is the super chat? Let me see somebody put in thing. Is the super chat thing there? Somebody has to give me an answer. Somebody, do you see the super chat button? Somebody say yes or no. No, nobody's saying anything yet, but I know Chicken Patty's going to tell me if she sees the super chat button. Does anybody see? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. I just want to know it was there. Great. So here's what we're going to do. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. I hope I didn't scare anybody, but it is what it is. And you know that the people that should be scared are the people in charge of Europe who are doing this debacle. Also, I do think that particular William Perry article that I shared, I think that's good. I think we can look at that as a positive sign that there's some pushback against Biden and the mad neocons. I wanted to add this in case you hadn't heard. Some polling have come out that says most people are unhappy with Biden's the Dark Brandon speech, and they feel that it was an unnecessary provocation that didn't go over well. Of course, you know, Republicans really hated it, and 89% of them, I think Liz Cheney and her crew, the Lincoln people, the Lincoln Republicans, whatever the hell they are, about the only ones that didn't hate it. It didn't go over well. I think 75% of independents opposed it. So the Dark Brandon speed of hatred and totalitarian evil and stuff like that didn't go over well. So good for that. Good old Dark Brandon, you evil bastard you. So buy me a coffee. You can see that. Look, if you can become a Patreon, that's great. Patreon.com/Garland Nixon. $3 a month, $5 a month, whatever you can do to help the channel keep the channel going. That's fine. Buymeacoffee.com/Garland in and an H on the end, which I don't know what that's about, but they put an H on the end of Garland in. Rockfin, make sure you smash the like button as per Alex Cristoforo always says. Smash that like button. But everybody who's here, I should get a like. I got 316. There's no reason I shouldn't have 316 likes. I appreciate it. Everybody's there. Please just reach up and like for me. Click that like button. And last but not least, make sure if you're not a subscriber over on my Rockfin channel that you go there and become a subscriber, because they may cut me off anytime. Any given day, YouTube may wake up and say, you son of a bugger, you're a Russian bot and you're out. And I want to make sure you can find me immediately. Besides, I like Rockfin better anyway. Rockfin is far better than YouTube. It has better video. It has better sound. And I can say what the hell I want on Rockfin. So rockfin.com/Garland Nick. Thanks, Nixon. Thanks a lot, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. Holy crap. I gotta hit the super chats. Christine Miller, thanks a lot. The lovely and beautiful Christine Miller. She's always in the house. Golden Silence, sorry to catch you late. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Golden Silence. We got Pachico Roan says, checking super chat. Thanks a lot, Pachico Roan. I appreciate that. Rapol Lagon says, Russia will tell us to lift the sanctions. Now, that's what they're going to say. Look, what has Russia said? They've said, we're cutting off your gas. And Europe said, that's not fair. And Russia said, well, you know, we got a lot of technical problems, but one thing will fix them. What's that? Lift the sanctions. You lift the sanctions, you get gas. You don't lift the sanctions, you don't get gas. I think that's what's going to come down to within the next couple months. People will be freezing to death, and there will be, and if the people going to die, they're going to take somebody with them, and that'll be their leaders. I oppose violence. I hope that doesn't happen. I would advise anybody that asks me, I say, do not get involved in violence. Don't hurt other people. I oppose that, but I ain't stupid. For instance, if I saw an alligator coming towards me, a giant alligator looking towards me, I would think to myself, I don't think alligators should eat people, but I don't think that alligator is going to listen, so I better get the hell out of here, right? Well, that's how I feel about Europe. I hope and pray that the people in Europe do not get violent, but that's not the way the world works, is it? That's not the way the real world works. Kevin Brooke Hudson, $2. Thanks a lot. Oh my gosh. Christopher Dobbs, yes. Kill your egregores. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Man, the super chats just started flying. $1.99 from Amon's 021. Thank you, Garland. Thank you very much. And Christine Miller started it all off. The beautiful and talented Christine Miller. Thanks a lot, Christine Miller. Thanks a lot, everybody. I certainly appreciate it. Everybody that does the things they need to do to keep the channel going. And for some people, if you don't have money, it's just like watching it and clicking the like button and interacting with all of our friends here. I certainly appreciate that. I love it. I enjoy running off at the mouth, and I'm glad I've got a lot of friends here to listen. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but you know, I'm having fun, and hopefully you are too. Oh, somebody had free Assange. Look at my shirt. I had it on all day. Look. Action for Assange. That's A for A, brother. Action for Assange. That's what I'm talking about. That's what my t-shirt says. Never forget Julian Assange. Oh, wait a minute. Rashid Khalid. Thanks a lot, Rashid. Raphael, remember the population of Italy killed Mussolini. I'm telling you, it wouldn't be the first time this happened. Ceausescu, they killed him. The czars in what happened to the czars? How did that end in Russia? What happened with the French Revolution? How did that work out? And what happens, unfortunately, in instances like that, they'll start going into the rich neighborhoods. People lose their minds. People go crazy, and they'll start blaming the rich. They go into the rich neighborhoods, and bad things could happen to the rich. They can grab their stuff. Those kinds of things happen. People will not accept that when human beings are at a point where their lives and their families' lives are threatened, that they're not going to be rational, and they're going to get violent. So we'll see. They don't have to listen to me. They don't have to listen to you. They don't have to listen to us. They can keep calling us idiots. They can keep saying that, oh, we're just falling for Russian propaganda, or we're perpetrating Russian propaganda. They can send all of the Ukraine bots on Twitter to attack us all. They can deplatform us and all kinds of things like that. But in the end, if they don't do something to fix this shit, they're going to have ropes around every one of their necks. They will not survive the kind of dystopian, a disastrous scenario that they're creating in Europe. Leaders do not survive that. Do not survive that. And I'm just saying, you know what? Listen to this. I'm not saying this for it to happen. I'm saying it for it not to happen. I'm saying it for somebody to listen and say, hey, you know what? Did you hear what that idiot Garland Nixon said? The old Russian bot? Yeah. You know, maybe we should listen to that. Maybe. I mean, I don't suspect they will, but I'm saying it just because I believe it. But I'm also saying it so somebody might think to themselves, ooh, this is going to go bad, and we ain't getting out of here alive. I mean, in reality, what's happened I could go on and on and on. What's the Nat Turner rebellion and slavery, right? In America, there was slavery, and Nat Turner and a bunch of slaves, people who were beaten, raped, murdered, kept as slaves. What'd they do? When they got a bunch of weapons, they went to the master's house and they killed everybody and cut their heads off. Women, children, everybody, anybody in the master's family, and they piled their bodies in the yard, and they went to the next house with the masters, the slave owners, and they killed everybody in the house, and they cut their heads off, and they piled their bodies. And that seems mad, doesn't it? That seems horrifying, insane. These people were slaves. They were sold, beaten, worked sun to sun. Their women raped. At that point, they're killing people and they're cutting their heads off. What I'm saying is that's the level of pain that you're looking at creating for these people. When you create that at the level of pain, people ain't rational no more. I mean, I'm just being serious here. You know what I mean? I joke and laugh around a lot. When people experience that, they are no longer rational. And I don't know how bad it could get in Europe, but I'm glad I ain't there. I put it like this. I got no trips planned to Europe until after it warms up. And it may be like, you ever been to a hurricane into an area after a hurricane, or been to an area after there was a tornado? I have. And you go in there and you're like, holy shit. Trees wrapped around stuff, cars bent up, houses flattened, and it just looked like, a nuclear bomb went off. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But my point is, if they let Europe run out of gas, if they continue on the path that they're continuing, that's what it'll be like when you go to Europe in the spring. It'll be, whew, it's over. Let's go see what we can find. If we can find, let's go from town to town and see if we can, save the living. People eaten, bodies frozen, giant makeshift cemeteries. I mean, think about it. What happens if you have entire cities with no in areas where it's blistering, horrifically cold, and it gets cold, and they got no heat, they got no electricity, and no water. In the whole cities, full gigantic cities of 1 million or millions of people, literally millions of people in cities, they got nothing. What do you think they're going to do? How many people are going to die? They got no water. All their pipes are going to burst. Everything's going to go to pieces. What do you think those people are going to do? And they got no food. I'll put it like this. Whoever made those decisions ain't getting out of that city alive or that country alive if they got anything to do with it. I don't want to see that happen, but that's an easy prediction. A horrifying one, but easy. Thanks a lot, everybody. Now that I've, said terrible things, but it's true. What are you going to do? Is anybody going to go in there and say, Garland, you're 100% wrong? That couldn't possibly happen. Somebody says, violence is their game. Why even act like it's a valid game to play? It's not a valid game. See, maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. I try to be a realist. It is not a valid game to play. I'm not playing games. I agree. Violence is their game. They like violence. Here's what I know. If you push a person, do this. A cat. Push a cat into a corner and see what that cat does. A small animal, a dog, small dog. Chase that dog and kick him. He'll run or whatever. I'm not saying that harm an animal, but you get the point I'm making. Back that dog into the corner and watch what happens. He'll turn around and bare every fang. And if you want to fight that dog, you're going to get bit. You may kill the dog, but rest assured one thing, he's going to tear your ass to pieces before he goes. It's nature. It is the nature. This is reality. This is Zen. This is reality. People are starving. People are suffering. I'm not saying, yay, let's do violence. I'm saying let's not do violence. But I ain't stupid. I know what I know, and you know it too. I understand a person saying violence is their game and let's not go violence. I agree with that, but this ain't a game. When people ain't got a food, it's no longer a game. It's no longer a rational decision-making process where people say, what shall we do? People go crazy. They go berserk. And when they do that, ain't no telling. Don't push. I'm going to say this to the leaders of Europe. Do not push your constituents to the point where they're desperate. Because if you do, there is no telling what they're going to do. So I'm with you. Violence is their game. And here's my advice. Don't push them that far. You need to go talk to Russia. You need to get that damn gas turned back on. You need to strike a deal. Because if you don't, God only knows what's going to happen to you. Thanks a lot, everyone. Whoa. Keep on trucking, Garland says. Good old the Sparkster. Thanks a lot. Russia will offer Russian passport to all EOU. No, they won't. Oh, no, they won't. No, they will not. Russia ain't going to offer them nothing but advice. Shut the hell up and get out of here. You ain't getting nothing. All right. Thanks a lot, you all. I certainly appreciate you taking an hour out of your time to listen to me. Don't forget, buymeacoffee.com. I'm there. Rockfin. Make sure you become either a member. It's $9.99 a month. Or if you can't afford that, that's fine. free. Become a subscriber, but make sure you go to Rockfin. Make sure you smash the like button. Patreon.com/Garland Nixon. If you can do $3 a month, that's great. 5, 10, whatever you can do. I appreciate helping keep this channel going. I'm working on something else on Rockfin. But it's my Rockfin exclusive that'll be pretty cool. So, anyway, thanks a lot. I ain't holding you guys up anymore. I'm tired. You're tired. Everybody's tired. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Peace. I'm out.